Thank you, Eric, for your introduction, and thank everybody who has participated with this today and who wants to make Tetra even more successful. I just thought I would give you a little bit of background. Myself and a number of other people with significant disabilities, we were all on welfare and, mostly quadriplegics and such. And we would sort of, talk about how we were not able to do the things we wanted to do, and so many little problems were in our way. And we thought, well, many of these problems are really technical, and we could really solve them with a technical way. So we, since we were all on welfare at the time, we thought, well, maybe we could start to put our money together and hire an engineer. And so I went and did a little, phone call, a search. We didn't have internet in those days. Charge out rate of of an engineer was more than any of us made in a month on welfare. And so we thought, ooh, I don't think that's going to get us very far. So I wrote a letter to the Professional Engineering Association, and this wonderful man came forward, Paul Chermak, came to my home. And I couldn't, I had an old fridge from my grandmother, and I would reach up and I couldn't, it had a spring on it, and the spring would close the freezer part. And I said, I just can't get my elbow or my head in enough to get the food out of my freezer. He went into my closet, unraveled this clothes hanger, and he put one hook around the door handle and another around a tray underneath, and son of a gun, it was open. It was amazing. It changed my diet in literally minutes. Now I could do frozen food. So we thought, this is amazing what he's done. And so we started sharing volunteers. Paul would go to others. Other people answered my letter. And so we had these miracles happening, and we were all being able to do things that we couldn't do before. And we recognize that what Tetra really is it's a very human thing, and we're just systematizing this very natural human process. Quite often, people with disabilities will find friends or uncles or, people that can help them do technical devices. And so that often happens, and beautiful things come about from that. And so what we did with Tetra is really just systematized it and kind of industrialized it in a way. So it enables people to reach out, and if they don't have that uncle or aunt or friend, then we find those people. So a lot of disabled people are not able to, reach out to people. They don't have the networks. And then a lot of the engineers that we run into they have beautiful workshops, and they do all these amazing things in their workshop, but they don't always have, the really life-changing projects. And a lot of them are thrilled to be involved. But it is, of course, necessary to do all that we can to make sure that a project doesn't hurt someone. And so that's why we always like to get professionals involved too, if we can. So these are the kinds of things that I ran into as I was trying to develop Tetra into a systematic process. And I was also quite intrigued by the value of the voluntary model versus the professional model. But we noticed that, when you do try to get a professional appointment, it's like, a couple months from now and at a certain time, you got to show up to a place. Versus the volunteer model is these guys, if you don't give them something to do regularly, they go away. But if you constantly are able to give them interesting projects, they'll show up the next day. Like I remember, well, how it worked for me. I was getting people, I'd phone call and I'd say, you know, this is a real problem for me, he'd be there by that evening, you know, with his tools. That would, you know, that if we can really shorten the time from when they ask and request, and if we can somehow make it less bureaucratic, that is the gold standard. The less that stands in the way of doing that, and then of course you have to worry about you know, overuse of the system, that very speculative ideas. You don't want to abuse people's volunteer spirit. So, and for me, the real key phrase is we release energy, we don't provide it. If we are providing energy, it's very expensive. If we're providing the, you know, the engineering help or whatever, the technical help, that's going to be a big budget item. But if you simply put people together and you get the, you know, really good technical person that already has equipment, that has a workshop, you know, that has the abilities, that's ideal. But whatever it is, if they're resourceful and they want to help, wow, that's gold. You've got the energy of the person who wants help and the energy of the person that can give the help. And so that's what we try to do. And so I think the really important thing of Tetra is to focus on successful projects. How do we get there fast? How do we get there with the least amount of friction in the system? And so I would go around, you know, when we developed the Tetra model and it seemed to work really well and we were getting all these miracles happening, then we thought, well, what else can we do? I guess what we could do is take that model to different cities. And so what we would do is we would try to find examples of Tetra in action before a system was in place. And often you will find, you know, somebody who's had a friend of theirs do something technical for them. And I say, hey, that's a Tetra project. It wasn't done by the formal Tetra organization. And so we would often use that initial device and the model of a caring and loving and capable citizen helping others. And we would use that as a way to promote development of Tetra system. And so we were able to set up these Tetra projects, Tetra chapters all over the place, you know, in the US and Canada. And so I'm always amazed to see that it's taken off and it's really, you know, excelled throughout all sorts of different communities, thanks to people like Eric and who are driving it, and all the good people that are, you know, making Tetra happen. So I just want to really thank all of you for changing people's lives. And I want to encourage you to keep at it and share your successes. If you find a new way to do things, share that. And maybe by doing that, we can keep tweaking it and getting it better and better, and changing a lot of lives. So good luck. Thank you very much for doing what you do. And let's go change lives. Thanks a lot.
So really today, hopefully you know more about Tetra than you came into the day with. And one of the initiatives that we had this year to really promote our projects and our volunteers was TetraNation. And TetraNation has been a virtual campaign that we've done for the last 4 years. And it has 3 different categories, and it's voted on by a panel. So it's chosen, and we have most votes, best child's project, and most innovative. So I'd like to showcase next this year's TetraNation winners. This project was done by the Newfoundland Chapter. What was required was supports that would enable the client to be able to do his archery. A frame was built that sits in front of the wheelchair, and then on top of the frame is an additional platform. This platform can go up and down, and it's adjustable, so the client can shoot left or right. This makes it much easier to use the bow with a lot less tension. So now it's just straight shooting, bullseye. This project was done by a volunteer of the Edmonton Chapter. The little girl wanted to be able to ride her bicycle independently but needed some modifications. First, the volunteer added some steering near the rear. This makes the bicycle much more easier to maneuver. He also added a seating support which helps her sit up straight, and she doesn't have to worry about leaning side to side. Also, bigger pedals were added, which keep her feet in place, and so she can just focus on the ride and going as fast as she can. All these great modifications add for one great ride and one happy rider. As you can see, she was more than happy to tell volunteer Steve that she loved her new bicycle.
Beach chair from the Hamilton Chapter. Custom built for water therapy. It folds and it floats.
That is a sample of our projects. And of course, you may be asking yourself, how can I get devices like that? How can I receive devices like that? So the next video that we're going to play is how to send in a request. How can you have devices from Tetra? Tetra Society, customized devices. I'm going to give these guys a call. I wonder if they can help me.
Hello, Tetra Society. This is Sean speaking. How can I help you?
Hi, Sean. My name's Eric. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks for the call. How can I help you out today?
I'm on the page Ask for Help, Request Assistance, but I see it's quite a, I don't know, it seems like a lengthy form and I'm not a fast typer, so I was wondering if you could help me fill this out.
Yeah, I
I can certainly help you out. If you just give me a moment here, I'll pull up the RFA form and I can just help you fill it out real quick.
Thanks for the help.
No problem at all.
So just starting at the first question here, which Tetra chapter is nearest to you?
Well, I live in Vancouver, so, and it looks like you guys are located in Vancouver, so I would check that one, so.
Okay, sounds good. And now just moving on, how old are you, Eric?
Why do you need to know that?
Yeah, so we just want to know about the demographic of the people that we're helping out, as well as it also helps us out with funding.
Okay, speaking of funding, that reminds me of a question I wanted to ask you. How much is this going to cost me?
So Tetra is actually a non-profit organization, and we have a group of talented volunteers here that will make the device for you at no cost. However, we do accept any type of donations.
Okay, so it's by donation then. Well, you guys certainly are a non-for-profit, and that sounds awesome to me. So, thanks for letting me know that. You wanted to know my age? It's 42.
Perfect. And what's the nature of your disability?
So just the two letters CP, abbreviation for cerebral palsy.
CP, got it. And would you be able to describe the problem that's needing a solution for me?
I like to do my own grilling. It means nothing fancy. And from a sitting position, you know, when I go to flip the burgers or when I have the food on the cooking surface, I struggle a little bit chasing the burgers on the grill.
Gotcha. Could definitely help you out with that. Now, have you already looked for a commercial solution for this problem?
I have, and I just haven't been able to find what I'm looking for.
No problem. Now, just moving on to the next question, would you be able to describe the commercial option that you researched?
I think what I really need is something custom made that'll prevent the burger from slipping off the back of the grill.
Now, is there any agency that's providing you with any financial support in acquiring assistive devices?
No, it's just me.
Can I ask you how you found out about our program?
I did a YouTube search. You guys had a bunch of great videos on there.
Perfect. Now, would I be able to ask, can we use your photographs for these purposes?
Yes, if it helps your program, I'm fine with it.
Awesome, thank you.
So we're just on the liabilities part of the form here, where it's going to tell you about all the liability clauses and risks. If you want, I can send you a Zoom link so we can hop on a quick video call so you can read it over. Is that all right with you?
Yeah, that would be great if you can do that, and I'll just read it over. That sounds good to me.
So I'll just send you a link here, and then I will see you in a minute on a video call.
Hi, Sean. Thanks a lot for sending me this link. So what I'm going to get you to do is I'm just going to get you to scroll through when I say when about the liability. All right, I accept that. Thank you for sharing that with me.
No worries. So if you're all done reading it over, I just need your permission to write your name here.
Please go ahead. You can type in my name again. Eric, E-R-I-C. Molendyk, M-O-L-E-N-D-Y-K. And I assume you'll be my witness?
I will be your witness today. And we'll submit it.
So one last question. When should I hear from someone?
So you should hear either from a volunteer or a coordinator within the next week or two. And then from there, they will set up a meeting with you, whether that be online or in person, whichever you feel more comfortable with.
Okay, thanks again. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing what can be created.
So I'm going to talk about requests for assistance, what kind of places you can get forms from. We're going to talk about some of the types of devices you can apply for, and then just go briefly through what happens afterwards. So thanks, Bryden, for the first screen. If you go to the second one, I'd appreciate it. Excellent. So I wanted to talk to you about where we get our devices from. We get them from your community organization, from those organizations who have clients with a disability. So we're talking about spinal cord injury, MS Society, brain injury, CNIB, any organization. Lately we've had a few from autism groups as well. So any organization in the community that deals with people with disabilities. We also have great connections with the hospitals and rehabilitation centers. In there, we make personal connections with the therapists, and they recommend Tetra to a lot of their clients. They will either fill out the form for the client, or they will have the client fill the form out themselves. Also, your peer support workers, they're in your homes. They see where your barriers are, and they may also suggest contacting Tetra. We also get a lot of repeat clients, especially families that have had children, things built. They will have something built when the child is very young, and then we'll have to revisit as their disability changes or as the child grows. So we have stayed with some families over 20 years to help them out with devices. The other place we get requests from is from the public. You may find this very strange, but when I'm out and about and I see someone struggling, sometimes I'll walk up to them, hand them a card or a brochure, and I'll give them a little rundown of what we do. And we have had clients contact us, and then we've made things for them. So, and of course, we would like to hear from you. So if you can think of a barrier you're having, which is a difficulty, please contact us, and I'll show you how in a minute. You saw this picture here that's on this slide. This gentleman here had surgery on both knees and needed water therapy. His mother actually filled out the form for Kim, And our volunteer did a rush job. He made the design and he built it within 3 weeks because the summer was waning last year. And there was some criteria for this chair. It had to travel on sand. It had to get the client into the water. It had to come apart and fold down so it could fit in the parents' car in their vehicle, and it had to snap together quickly. It couldn't be too difficult. So there's 128 PVC pieces that were put together by the volunteer, and he did a great job, and the client is very happy, as you can see by the smile on his face. Next there, Bryden. And if you have questions, just leave them in the chat room. We can answer them later, and we'll open the floor up as well. You can see here, there's a map of Canada, and where do you have to live to get a device? Anywhere in Canada. We do have 40 chapters that you can see with the logos all the way from Vancouver, from the West Coast, right through to Newfoundland on the East Coast. You do not have to live in one of the cities. We have been very good in capturing and using all our resources across Canada. So you would be contacted by the closest chapter coordinator where you live, and if we have to do the project, they will call you or email you or have a virtual meeting and discuss the design and how to overcome your barrier. And once the volunteer built the device, we would have it shipped to you. So anywhere in Canada you are, and you also see there's a couple of chapters in the States as well. We've done many projects for the States as well. Next one, Bryden, please. So what kind of things can we make? We can make you anything practically. Something for your daily living. If you want to brush your hair independently or brush your teeth independently, or if you want to take up cooking and you need utensils or pots modified, we can do that for you. If you have a child that goes to school that has a disability, we can do anything for them. We've done a few desks custom made for the child in school. We can do that at work as well. For play, we have modified many, many toys over the years for different reasons. So that's not an issue. If you want to take up a hobby or recreational activity like playing cards, or you would like to paint, or you would like to take up photography, we can modify the camera for you and we can mount it for you on a wheelchair, a scooter, a walker, anything. Sports is ones we like to do as well. You're going to see later modified hockey glove, but we also have made bocce ball launchers, bowling ball launchers, you name it. So anything to do with sports is always fun. And music. We have done a lot of modifications of guitars. We've made a guitar table. We've made a saxophone stand. We've modified a flute. And I'm going to show you next here one we did for music. So anything in life, anything you can think of, we'll build you that project. Next screen, please, Bryden. So we like to do projects that are not commercially available. So you cannot go on the internet, into a catalog, or into a store and buy these things. These are one-of-a-kind, made-for-you devices. And this shows here a young man who wanted to play guitar, and he is missing his left forearm. So our volunteer went in and made him this prosthetic that's easy to put on, easy to take off, and is comfortable. And you can see on the end that a pick is installed there, and now he's able to play his guitar. So things that are not commercially available. Thanks, Bryden. Or if a device is too expensive, and this is a great example here. We made this crib actually for a gentleman in New York State. He came to Canada before COVID and picked it up. If you order a crib from California, because that's, I think, where you have to order them for, an accessible crib, they're $5,000 US. And I think for the length of time that a baby uses it, maybe a couple of years, that's a lot of money. So Tetra then asked the client to buy a crib at IKEA. There's several models to choose from. And then the volunteer, I believe, uses about $300 in parts to change the entry point and the height of the accessible crib. So we make it extremely affordable. So those are the types of projects that we like to take on. Next one, Bryden. So Sean and Eric went through how to fill out the form. But if you can use a computer, you would go to our website, tetrasociety.org, and I'll drop this in the chat afterwards so that you have it ready there for you. Or you can call, if you can't use a computer, you can call the 1-800 number and we will fill out the form for you. Or you can call a regional coordinator or a chapter coordinator, whatever you find on the website or in our brochure. Anyone will help you fill out the request for assistance form if you cannot do it. The only thing you need to know is your contact information. If you have an occupational therapist working with you, we'll take their name and contact, because sometimes we need to speak to them when it comes to seating or different things when it involves your body. You only have to tell us what the barrier is. But if you do know a solution or want to contribute, that's not an issue. You will take part in the design process. So no worries there. You are in control of your project from beginning to end. Next one. This is a great project that was just completed here in Ontario. It was a three-way community partnership with the request for assistance. The form or the request for the device came in from a rehab center called Aaron Oak Kids. The car or truck was purchased by a Shriners Club, and the Tetra volunteer modified it. So the Tetra volunteer took the gas pedal out, took the steering wheel out, took the seat out, and then with the occupational therapist at Aaron Oak Kids, the volunteer and the OT decided on the type of seating for the child because he could not stand or sit on his own. He has never moved on his own in his entire life. So there you see a great seat for him with a perfect harness to keep him safe. And then the Tetra volunteer went on to put the motor on and a toggle switch because the little boy can move his right arm. And so he's able to drive. And the video, which sorry, I don't have here, of him first time moving himself in his life, he was laughing so hard. And now he can play with his brother and friends on the driveway. And it's the coolest thing to see. So that's a great project where you can see the entire community involved. The Shriners, a rehab center, and Tetra. So we work with everybody for the solution. And of course, the parents were involved as well. Thanks, Bryden. The next one. So Eric and Sean on the video showed you how to fill the form out, and then they pushed the submit button, and you got a thank you on the computer. But things start to happen once you do that. And so this is the fastest way to get yourself on the list of having your device built, is to submit the form. Excuse me, because as soon as you push that submit button, about 10 copies go out to a bunch of staff in the organization. It goes out to the national coordinator, it goes out to the regional coordinator, it goes out to the chapter coordinator. And so within the first 2 days to 48 hours, usually by email, you will receive an email from the regional coordinator where you live. And in that email, they will thank you for submitting your receipt, acknowledge that we got it. And then they will connect you to the local chapter coordinator with the name and email address. And then we'll also ask you to join the local Facebook page, because that's where you can see lots of things on disabilities and all the completed projects that Tetra does. So once a chapter coordinator finds a volunteer on their list with the skills to do your project, they will then contact you by phone or email, give you the name of the volunteer, and then you and the volunteer will work together with whomever else you would like present. So if you want your parents there, you want your OT there, you want your peer support worker there, everybody can join in on the solution, the design of your project. So you are always in control of your project. Just remember, if it doesn't work when we're done, you call us back. Or if things change over the year and you need something modified, call us back. We are always with you. We do not leave you after we deliver the project. So the last screen. So what barrier would you like to break in order to become more independent? Or perhaps you know somebody that has a barrier that we could solve for them. Let's do it. Let's sign up. Let's fill out the form and let's get it done.
We've shown the types of videos that can be done, and we've talked about how every request done comes from you, our members, and it really is a partnership amongst the network. A request comes in, a volunteer works on it, and of course, we want to promote those stories. So as the saying goes, we can help other people and not have to reinvent the wheel. So one of my colleagues, and I can't think of a better person to introduce at this time than Jordan Cripps. So Jordan, I will turn it over to you to present on kind of the power of communication and a little bit about your story and how other people can help tell theirs through Tetra devices.
Great. Thank you, Eric. Bryden, you have my slides ready to go? Perfect. Thank you. So as Eric mentioned, I'm a development and communications officer with the Disability Foundation and our affiliated societies. One of my main roles is as the communications lead of Tetra. This involves many different things, including promoting events like TetraCon. I also do want to mention that in addition to working with Tetra, I'm also a client. And as we've heard throughout the day, food seems to be a bit of a recurring theme for Tetra, and what it leads a person to connect with them. It was my love of food and cooking that really led me to reach out to them as a client. I got kind of tired of watching my food fall on the floor after I tried to pull it out of the oven. And so I contacted Tetra to see if a solution could be found. And working with a volunteer who may be even in the audience today, we came up with a solution that allowed me to more safely and easily get my food in and out of the oven. And so that's enough of an introduction of me. So I'm actually here to talk to you today about social media. I'm not really going to focus on sort of the nuts and the bolts of social media, but more to give a couple of tips for those of you in the audience who might be involved in the social media for your local Tetra chapter or region. So if we go to the next slide, please, Bryden. So these are just a few guidelines that I want to start out with covering over. First one is to post consistently, whether that's once a week or once a month. Come up with a schedule and do your best to stick with it. You can go to the next slide, please, Bryden. One of our new social media initiatives that Eric mentioned is Tetra Tuesday. It's been quite a successful campaign for us this year, in large part because it posts every Tuesday without fail, regardless of what else is going on with Tetra. It's always going to be something that will be appearing on a Tuesday. So we try to put it on at different times throughout the day, so that we can reach people from coast to coast and beyond. But it's always going to be appearing on Tuesdays. And the next slide, please, Bryden. The next one I sort of want to talk to you about is, just 1 second here, sorry. A picture is worth 1,000 words. It's a cliche, but it's true. A good picture or two can tell a story better than most of us can using words. Not sure if I picked this picture because it's a good example or not, but yeah, a picture or two can really go a long way to connecting with your audience. So that's next slide, please, Bryden. And so this is something that our senior communications officer, Taylor, has come up with as a sort of guideline for us to follow. It's called the rule of threes or the rule of thirds. It's one way to sort of structure your social media content, which sees us presenting 1/3 of our content being self-promotion, so promoting events like TetraCon or TetraNation. 1/3 of that is sharing the work of others, like our community partners. You can see on the picture there that I've got a picture from the Youth Leadership Initiative. And then 1/3 of posts that are fun or contain information and topics relevant to your audience. So those are sort of the three kind of guidelines that I really want to sort of highlight for you. So I want to get into the sort of the main part of my presentation, which is going to be a bit of a conversation about the importance of storytelling. So if you go to the next slide, please, Bryden. So for me, social media is simply the vehicle we use to tell the stories of Tetra's clients, volunteers, and staff, whether that be on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, even Snapchat or TikTok or whatever. We're exploring that now, or some yet to be created social media platform. We want to tell stories for many reasons. Obviously, we want to help promote Tetra's work. reach more people with disabilities who can benefit from an assistive device, as well as the volunteers who, connecting with volunteers who can make devices, and donors and funders, of course, who enable us through financial support to do the work that we do. As much as we try to reach as big of an audience as we can, telling your own stories as clients or volunteers or staff can help us reach even more people with disabilities who may need support addressing a barrier through the creation of an assistive device. And so, but I think for me, that's sort of the obvious kind of importance for sharing our information on social media. Beyond promoting the work that Tetra does, sharing your stories as clients and volunteers, and the impacts that some of the devices created have, and as well as kind of talking about the barriers that are being addressed, serves to highlight the idea that people with disabilities, like everybody else, have many different things that they want and need to accomplish, and many different things that they can offer. So as we began planning for this year's TetraCon, we really wanted to highlight some of the wide range of devices that Tetra volunteers have designed and crafted over the past 30 plus years. And many stories emerged from that brainstorming. Whether it was the first time parent needing an adapted crib, like Sylvia mentioned earlier, or somebody looking for a way to simplify the way to communicate with others, or somebody looking to learn a sport, sharing these needs and wants, as well as the devices that support them, can contribute in some small way to the creation of a more inclusive world. And this is something I do truly believe in, that we can, by sort of sharing our stories as people with disabilities or volunteers or staff members, we can help to create a bit more of an inclusive world. So earlier in the day, Eric mentioned how I was struck by that archery project that we featured in TetraNation. Everybody has passions. Although I can't really say that archery is mine, this story struck me because it highlighted the importance of sharing with the world the passions, the interests, and the needs of people with disabilities. So my presentation has been a little shorter than I had planned, but I want to conclude my talk with a bit of a call to action of sorts. So if you've received a Tetra device that is supporting you in some way, share your story, either on your own social media or by getting in touch with Tetra. My contact information should be on screen now, so if you go to the next slide, please, Bryden. And if you're a volunteer building devices, check with your clients to see if they would be comfortable sharing their story. Then let your coordinator know. We'd love to help with sharing stories.
Let's go ahead just to give people an idea of, it doesn't have to be a long testimonial to be impactful. If you could play the testimonial videos, please.
So here's Edmund in his new chair with the other regular wheels on. He's so excited. What do you want to say, buddy?
Thank you for the wheels.
And the
Chair.
wheelchair.
Ready.
So here's Edmund and his new all-terrain wheelchair. We can go on snow,
Grass and sand.
yay! So that means we can go to the beach. Where else can we go? To the park, right?
Can we go for a drive?
Yeah, but to where? To the
Park?
beach and the park.
Can we do that?
Sure.
Hi, this is Penny. Penny was one of my first clients and now is my Tetra volunteer.
Hi, I was a client for Tetra and I needed a cup holder for my wheelchair, and we designed this together with Dave, the insert and everything, and in doing so I enjoyed it so much I wanted other people to also benefit from things like that. So now I volunteer with Dave and I help other people with things like cup holders and tables for their chairs.
Windsor Chapter.
Oh, I'm at the Windsor Chapter.
Of course, we always want people to know that Tetra devices are for anybody, and this includes the board chair of the entire Disability Foundation, Maureen DeLanderville. And I want to thank Maureen. She's about to join me and share some of her experiences of how she's benefited from Tetra and meeting with the volunteers and some of the devices that she's had made for her.
Well, I can't even begin to say the extent of the benefit. It's just being part of my ability to be independent and function on my own. It's very much thanks to Tetra. Within the last year, when I have increasingly dry eyes, and one of the Tetra volunteers was brilliant. It was quite a project, but he devised a mechanism which is attached to my bed, and I am able to back up, tip back, and have remote control to put eye drops in my own eyes. It's just amazing. And he made it beautiful. It's all painted white, so it's unobtrusive and most effective. And it was an amazing accomplishment, I thought. And presently also, there's a new project whereby I'm devised a mechanism to put my cape on. I have devised some clothing that's relatively easy to get on and off, but I'm unable to do the heavy winter ones. And so I know they're also working on that right now to be able to actually drop it over my head. And then when I come back in, lift it over. So there's no end to the challenges they'll take on. And there's no end at this point that I've never seen them not be able to solve the problem that I'm dealing with.
Because he is here in the crowd, no need to make a great presenter wait. I'd like to introduce Dr. Leonard Lye. And the foundation in its current format is celebrating its 25th year. The individual societies have been around for a long time, but the foundation is in its 25th year, and Dr. Lye is in its 25th year of being involved with Tetra. Imagine that, a quarter century of helping people with disabilities and coming up with devices. Dr. Lye has his PhD in civil engineering, and he graduated from the University of Manitoba. But for those who know him best, he has been part of the Memorial University since 1988 in Newfoundland. Dr. Leonard Lye has truly made Tetra a coast-to-coast organization. He has received numerous awards for his distinguished teaching. He has received the Government of Alberta's Bronze Award for Teamwork in 2012. He has been recognized by the Professional Society of Engineers in Newfoundland and Labrador for his community service. He has won the President's Award for Exceptional Community Service. And as you can see in this picture, we were so proud to award Dr. Leonard Lye Tetra's Lifetime Achievement Award in 2014. He is a teacher, a mentor, and he is no stranger to nonprofits. He and his wife, as if Dr. Leonard Lye wasn't busy enough, started their own nonprofit, the Taoist Tai Chi Society. He and his wife founded that together, and it is a nonprofit that focuses on clarity and personal empowerment through Tai Chi. Dr. Leonard Lye is a true humanitarian with great inventive ideas and has motivated so many young students to be a part of his engineering team. And he, earlier this year, we were proud to play a feature of a project that he did that was featured on CBC. So if we can just play that video.
Carter Burton is getting ready for the biggest game of his life. Actually, it's his first game in minor hockey. But Carter is cool, collected, and ready to hit the ice.
I would be a bit nervous. How come you're not nervous? You just excited or what?
Well, everybody that is coaching me knows that I got a bad hand, so they understand. We're gonna just have lots of fun, and there's gonna be games, but they're only gonna be against Central.
When Carter says he has a bad hand, what he means is he has a form of cerebral palsy, which affects his left hand.
because I had a stroke before I was born.
Okay.
And stuff this happens.
Carter's left fingers don't fit into a normal, bulky hockey glove, but the protection those gloves provide is important. The budding forward needed an assist.
We basically design assistive devices for people with disabilities.
This is where Leonard Lye comes in, a professor emeritus at Memorial University's Faculty of Engineering and a volunteer with the Tetra Society in St. John's. Tetra custom makes equipment for people like Carter.
So all I know was that he had this special form of cerebral palsy, and he needs, basically he needs to modify the hockey glove. So maybe an easy way is to demonstrate that. So a glove would be something like that with 5 fingers, right? So you need to put each of your finger in the glove. But his left hand, because of his cerebral palsy, he can't put the fingers in the glove. So basically what I have to do is find a pair of hockey gloves that fits him, and then figure out how to convert this with 5 fingers into a mitt. That's basically what I did, and what he needs, right?
All in all, the project took about 2 weeks. For Lye, working with the Tetra Society is a hobby, something to do now that he's retired. But for Carter, his work means so much more.
So just take a look. Carter had a message for you.
Oh.
Thank you a lot. And now I got the opportunity to play hockey because of you. I'm learning lots of new stuff because of him.
Yeah.
And I just love hockey.
What does that mean to you hearing that?
Well, like I said, I've not met him before, so to see his face and to see him really, really, really grateful, that's I think one of the reasons why we do this kind of things, right? I mean, is to make somebody's life a lot better, and so that they can do what they want to do, you know. That's one of the mission of Tetra, the Tetra Society, you know. So this definitely made my day, of course, right? You have to tell them that I'm so happy that it worked out, you know, and this is exactly what we are here for, to help people like this, right? And to see him so happy and to be able to make use of it, like I said, it definitely made a big difference, not just to him, but I would say to all of us who are volunteers, you know. And that's exactly why we're here. I mean, that's what we want to do, right? To make a big difference to somebody's life, you know, and the parents especially. Right?
Back in Springdale, Carter heads out on the ice for his first hockey game with all the other kids. With his new glove, he doesn't just fit in, he flourishes. In a few weeks' time, he'll be named Player of the Game, a stellar start to what promises to be a long hockey career. Ramraj Shavendran, CBC News, St. John's.
Thank you to CBC for that feature, and I couldn't have said it better myself. I now am honored to welcome, to share with us today Dr. Leonard Lye. Bryden, if you can make sure his camera's turned on and the microphone. And Dr. Lye, it's been such a pleasure to work with you and continue to do so. And 25 years of being involved with Tetra. Thank you so much for all you have done and continue to do, and what an amazing feature that was. And I'll turn it over to you just to share some of your own experiences.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you for the introduction. I can't believe it's 25 years. I know it's 96 that we started here. And it's what, 2021? Yeah, it's 25 years. It's unbelievable, isn't it? I was a very young man at that time. It doesn't feel like 25 years for sure, because we have projects, lots of projects every year, and always busy, always interesting. So it doesn't feel like 25 years at all. It doesn't feel like work at all, and it's always fun. I think you did tell me to speak a little bit more about the glove thing. So I hope I can share my screen just to give you a sense of how the project came about. I got a request from the occupational therapist from central Newfoundland. Okay, this is not St. John's, of course. So this is because they live in Kings Point, which is a small community outside the main town. So this is a traveling kind of OT that visits them only once in a blue moon. So, so it's not like a regular kind of visit or, so she gets to see them only once in a while, right? So when they requested something like that, she reached out to me, and then have to, like I said, we went back and forth because when she first contacted me was February 28, 2020. So it seems like more than a year ago. And at that time, like there were a lot of questions. Like I wasn't sure exactly what she was talking about. What do you mean? What he needed? I didn't even know which hand it was, right? Whether it's left hand or right hand. So we went back and forth, and then she has to wait for the next visit kind of thing. It takes a while to communicate. They're not very responsive with email, apparently. So it took a while before we before I knew exactly what I need to do, because I don't play hockey, so I have no clue what a kid's hockey glove look like, actually, to be honest. So I need to know, like, what does a hockey glove look like and what needs to be modified. I didn't know that the thumb piece doesn't need to be modified, for example. Okay, so it took quite a while, and then COVID struck, and well, we couldn't find a hockey glove. I couldn't find any hockey glove anyway. All the stores were closed. It was much later in August before I managed to get out to the store and actually find a pair of hockey gloves that fitted him, because I didn't know what size he wore. I had to go back and forth with the parents to find out what size glove he wears, right? So it took a while to figure out exactly what the need was and the size of the glove and things like that. And after getting the glove, then, well, I have to figure out how do you convert the glove into a mitten. So it took a while. It's not something that, wow, okay, it's done overnight. It took 2 weeks or something. It's not really true. The CBC, well, as you know, CBC stories are always, they try to make it as if it's pretty straightforward. So it took quite a while. It was in October before everything was done. That's when the TV interview was done as well, although the story didn't appear until April 26th, because they want to make sure that the provincial election was over before they put out the story, so that the story doesn't get buried in the election. As you can see, there's a lot of politics going on, even for stories like that. So the problem is, so this boy, as you met him, Carter Burden, he's pretty high functioning. He can skate, he can do a lot of stuff, except that his left hand is the problem, right? His left fingers, he couldn't wear regular gloves, as you can see from the story. So we have to convert the left hockey glove into a mitten. So this is the final product. Well, when I was doing it, I didn't actually record the process. You were just trying to figure out how it works, right? Anyway, I took the final picture. That's what he was wearing. Now, luckily, after the story aired on CBC, I got a request from Ottawa, from a parent whose son has a similar problem, except for the right hand. So again, Ontario was in lockdown. The request was sent to me, but unfortunately, because of lockdown, they couldn't go and get the pair of hockey gloves to send over. So I had to wait for quite a few months before, after lockdown, before they could actually go out and buy the pair of hockey gloves and send me the right glove this time. It's the right hand. So I said, but this time I was prepared, right? I know what to do now because I've done it before, and I documented the process this time, at least by pictures anyway. So it's definitely easier the second time, because now I know exactly what to do, what to cut, what to unpick and things like that. So you can see from here, you first unpick the surface part, the palm part, unpick, and then I have to cut out the connecting web here, cut it down, except the tip, and then I have to sew them together, and then slowly put the cover back, basically. So you slowly, then you put it back again, right? Until the finished design. So now inside there's no connecting web, basically. So it's actually quite simple. So it took me only 1 day to get all this done. So the second time is a lot easier. You know exactly what to do. So in case anybody else want to convert a glove into a mitten in future, you never know, you might get a request like that. It's quite simple actually. In fact, because all this leather has holes already, and the soft part is fairly easy for the needle to get through. So it's actually the sewing part is actually easier than the first glove that I made, because this model, this kind of glove, this brand seems to be has softer lining, so it's much easier to sew. The thread that I use, the inside one, I was using dental floss. My dentist kept giving me all this floss whenever you visit the dentist, right? So I got lots and reels of all this dental floss, and I was told that that's really strong and waterproof and everything. So that's what I use, recycling it, you know. And the other one is a kind of polyester thread that I use for the outside, ones. Supposed to be very strong as well. So that is basically it. So it's a very nice project, except this is from a different province, from Ontario. Like, you never know, right? Once the story gets out, you could get a request from anywhere.
So that means now that I am up, because I'm going to kind of expand upon about what does it mean to be virtual coordinators. And of course, we've had this whole conference virtually. People are meeting virtually. Dr. Lye shared stories about making stuff for people across the country. We've seen devices even from our chapter in Utah. That's why our full name is the Tetra Society of North America. If there's anybody close to the border, again, we do have a chapter in Columbus, and Russ Weir has been around for a long time. Kent Raymond and his crew in Utah make devices like the train that you saw, and we have another chapter in California as well, and Dr. Landsberger will take on devices. So how are some of the ways that we're making those connections? Well, Bryden, if you could pull up the presentation on virtual coordinators. So we've seen Sylvia on camera, so there she is. I wanted to start the presentation off with her. Again, she is the national coordinator, so she really is overseeing and leading the charge with our other chapter coordinators. So I guess I'll start there. Is Sylvia serves multiple roles. She is the national coordinator, and then she's what's called a regional coordinator. So we have coordinators in different regions. For example, I serve the region for BC and the Yukon, and then we have Crystal, and she's the regional coordinator throughout the prairies. So that would be Calgary to Winnipeg. We have Andrew Jansen, who covers Atlantic Canada. So that's Dr. Leonard Lye's area in Newfoundland and PEI and Halifax, Nova Scotia, all those areas. And Andrew and Dr. Lye have consulted on different projects. And then we have chapter coordinators as well that work in the actual city. So for example, we have people in Kelowna and Vernon. You've heard names and videos. So there's multiple ways to get connected, right? So if you go online and you fill out a request, or you see a video on YouTube or Facebook, I see a whole bunch of people have joined our social media, so that'll make Jordan happy. So, reaching out and asking for help is the first step. We'll go to the next slide. And again, we are across the country, and I want to give a special shout out, because this is the definition of a virtual chapter. Currently, we don't have a chapter coordinator in Thunder Bay, but Sylvia helps coordinate and activities that happen in Thunder Bay. We have a volunteer there, Daniel, and he will take on devices. So this is what's meant by a virtual chapter. If you look at the map and you say, I don't see a coordinator near me, or I don't see a pin on the map, don't lose hope. It has been said numerous times by Dr. Leonard Lye and Sylvia, COVID has taught us even more to be adaptable, and we can help each other online. Projects can be sent out, and now we do have volunteers in Thunder Bay where we didn't have coverage before. So I know Daniel's in attendance. I want to thank him for joining, and we are excited to have a presence virtually in Thunder Bay. So again, what will happen, Sylvia laid it out very well. When you submit a request, we all get a copy. So in case one of our emails isn't working or there's a technical glitch, there is a fail-safe. It goes to the different regional coordinators, and then the person that's closest to that area will take it over. So for example, if a request comes in for Thunder Bay, Sylvia would look over the request and say, oh, this is a modified cup holder. Daniel, can you take a look at this project? And if it's close to where he lives, he'll either work with you one-on-one or he'll try and solve the problem online, and we'll show examples of that. Next slide, please. So as we talked about, if you don't see a chapter, don't be afraid to ask for help. In our RFA drop-down, you can always say, I'm not sure. So when you're filling it out, you can say, I'm not sure which chapter. That's fine. The request will still go through. And when it asks, do you have an idea of how to solve the solution? You can say, I'm not sure either. As we've heard, sometimes brainstorming happens together when you meet, whether that's online or in person. But step number one is don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help. Again, here is kind of part of Tetra's network. It doesn't even include all the coordinators, but here are at least people that can get you in touch with a volunteer or a coordinator near your area. So we can see Sylvia, the national coordinator. She's in Central Canada, myself, and then we have Crystal. We're going to hear from her later, and Andrew. So we truly are coast to coast, and we'll think of it as a network of people reaching out to give you a hand. We do have a toll-free number. So I should mention, if you call the toll-free, it actually goes to my email. So you can leave a confidential message and I can play it on email. And Sylvia will tell you, or any of the regional coordinators, I send phone messages out to the appropriate person as it comes in. So just I'll read it out for anyone with visual impairments. The toll-free number, 1-877-688-8762. That number is checked, even if we're working from home. Any messages left there, I will receive. So we'll go to the next. So another thing that Tetra can help with is sometimes we might not have the program. So for example, we saw in one of the videos a sit ski. Well, in the Disability Foundation, we talked about the affiliated societies. We don't have a sit ski program, but we could connect you if you're in the Lower Mainland to somebody up in Whistler, Adapted Snow Sports, that does have a skiing program. We do get requests and calls for information, so don't be afraid to ask the questions. We'll do the best we can. Sometimes we get calls about, is there someone that could help me and make sure I'm getting all the benefits I should on my taxes? And if we don't have the answer, we'll try and look it up for you and at least give you some type of answer to your challenge. So, you know, we always say we either want to complete the project, we want to be working on the project, or we want to refer it to a successful solution. Next. So, and of course, we have great volunteers. Now, Penny in the video of client testimonials, she very clearly said that you can volunteer, you can be a client rather, and then go on to volunteer. And many people will say, well, I'm not technically skilled, how can I help? Well, we can always either sharing stuff on Facebook, sharing a story on Facebook, helping with outreach. Again, knock on wood that sooner than later we're back meeting in person, and that we you'll see Sylvia or one of us at community events. You know, if you're happy to help us tell our story, whether that's in written form or joining somebody at a table to promote what we do, that always helps, right? If we've learned one thing today, any event that happens takes lots of people helping out and lending a hand. So if there's events happening, the more help we have, the better. So never underestimate your skills to help, whether it's outreach and then administrative. We've talked about sharing information and collecting pictures. So if you're awesome at either taking pictures or contacting somebody and saying, hey, can you send in a report on this project? Can you elaborate on the solution? Even if you talk to me, I can take it down. There are any number of ways that someone can help out, and it truly makes a difference. So we'll go to the next. So, and we do have university clubs as well. We've heard from Dr. Leonard Lye. He is the foremost in that department and developing a university club. So again, how you can help is if you know an engineering student in your own life and you're like, hey, would you like to put your skills to use? We do have university clubs. They can either, as part of curriculum, work on projects for their fellow students on campus, or they can join a chapter. Many of our volunteers also love to pass knowledge on. That's a great thing about knowledge, is it's the most powerful when we pass it on. So our volunteers like to work with students, and students also, they're the ones that are on social media. They're the ones that are using Google Home. So it's a great way to share information. We'll go to the next slide. And here is a list of our chapters and university clubs. You can see front and center, Dr. Leonard Lye at Memorial University. I've shared that email in the chat. He's also shared his personal one. And we have UBC out here. We're always looking to develop other chapters and a number of student clubs in Ontario. And again, Sylvia can talk about this, or Zara could in Ottawa. If the students are working on a project and they need to consult with a volunteer, that can happen. And Tetra will help cover the cost of a university project as well. So the main goal is that we come up with a solution that meets your needs and something customized that makes life easier, that breaks down a barrier, to go back to the theme of the day, is created. Next. So here we have so many great volunteers. These two individuals came to mind because they have definitely done. Jim Stone, we don't have a coordinator in Red Deer, but we have Jim, and he has done probably close to 50 or 60 devices over the years. He's done everything from adapted sleds, and when a project comes in, Crystal will send it out to him. And I mean, he's worked with people in Halifax on adapted phone holders. Jim Rennie is a volunteer in the Halifax area, but he's made adapted cribs that we've sent across the country. So, and as you've seen in features, the volunteers have their own shops, they'll make designs, and then Tetra will also cover the shipping costs of devices. So if something's built and created by the volunteers, and we send it to you, we'll also cover the shipping cost as well. We'll go to the next slide. So here's some examples we've talked about. So these, you've seen examples. Sylvia had that in her presentation. These are ones that have definitely been done virtually as well. So the modified hockey glove, we heard in that CBC feature, Dr. Leonard Lye never got to meet Carter in person, but still the device got completed and had great impact. Modified cell phone holders, our volunteer in Red Deer was working with our coordinator in Halifax. So literally almost coast to coast. Modified cup holders have been sent, Google Home installations. We just talked about Sylvia's help coordinate her volunteers in Hamilton making adaptive cribs for people at other parts of the country. And that was a huge team effort for new parents. So we will connect different ways and try and send something out that meets your needs. This is what it means virtually. So always remember, if you go to the map or you're not sure which chapter is close to you, you can say, I'm not sure, and then somebody will get in touch with you. Sylvia gave the example earlier. The volunteers also try to be as timely as possible, but most importantly, safe as possible. We talked about the beach wheelchair that was done in a couple weeks before the end of the summer, but they still put the very best effort to make sure it's safe, secure, and durability to use. So we'll go to the next. So again, just a reminder, it all starts with the request for assistance. When you go online, and hopefully we've explained through the videos and you have a clear understanding, we ask those questions so that if possible, we can meet you in person. Every request that you've seen, every video that you've seen is client driven, right? We're not going to dictate to you what your needs are. You can put it down on paper. If you're not sure how to solve it, Dr. Leonard Lye pointed out, we'll just ask questions and we'll work on it together. But everything that gets built or created is client driven. Next. I do have two video examples of virtual coordination in action. So this is a true definition. This client was in Smithers, BC, and he had had a fall and ended up developing a spinal cord injury. And part of his rehab was he wanted to be able to stand up, but he had difficulty moving his footrest out of the way. When your back is hurting, it can be really difficult to reach down. So the volunteers in Vancouver, this fellow's in Smithers. If anybody knows, Smithers is just south of Prince George, quite a distance. So you'll see how they interacted online and how this project led to a successful conclusion.
Okay, Rod, here's another idea I have. So what this one is it's a footrest that tips down. So you don't actually move this mechanism up and down, but you tip it up and down, and we can find a control for that. Now the beauty of this one is I still have the fold up function of it. You can come down. So this is option one with just two pins that you can see, they just go up and they're there. And we fastened the original two footrests together with a metal bar. You'll see this metal bar here, and it drops down and clips in onto that. Now option number two is we have this Velcro strip here, and we have a pin. This bolt that's down on the bottom here can come out. This pin then goes down and through that bolt and gives us a positive connection if we're operating on rough terrain. And again, it just goes up and lifting it up.
Okay.
Well, and good to go.
Okay.
Put her back. Yeah.
So the client and the volunteer never met in person, but it was a completely successful conclusion, and they met online exchanging ideas. And again, nothing beats meeting in person, but sometimes, the next best thing is just brainstorming, and you can see firsthand that was the client in the end being able to use the device for themselves. So that was a huge success. Well, we've highlighted what's been created by volunteers. I definitely wanted to highlight some of our volunteers and different efforts being done. So our next presentation is, this is an interview I got to do with Micah Helen out of Kelowna, and you'll hear in the interview, I had the privilege, and this is an excellent example of kind of growing with Tetra. Micah was an engineering student. We met in 2016. He was going to school at UBC here in Vancouver, and then he went on to be a volunteer with the Kelowna chapter. And really today has been about finding out what Tetra is as far as the projects you can have. And now I want to focus on, of course, who can volunteer, kind of the backbone of what we do. And I have the privilege today, again, for those who don't know, I'm the program manager for Tetra, Eric Mullendijk, and I have the privilege to speak with Micah Helen, who I had the privilege of knowing from back in 2016 when he was an engineering student at UBC. And Micah has, after his studies, gone on to be a volunteer for the last number of years with our Kelowna chapter. Micah, thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Can you talk a little bit, Micah, on what drew you to engineering?
Yeah, that's a big question. I guess maybe people with a mechanical aptitude are either born with or without it. Maybe it's similar to being like a musician or an artist. Even from a young age, I remember when things wouldn't work, like a water gun or something, I would always take it apart and try and figure out what's wrong with it and try and come up with like a fix for it. So I think, yeah, mechanical aptitude is just something that I always had when I was young. And then that kind of drew me into the world of engineering and specifically mechanical, which is a little bit more of like a middleman as far as engineering goes. You learn a little bit of electronics and a little bit of like civil, chemical, so you're kind of the middleman. Yeah, hopefully that answered your question.
So when you took apart the water gun, were you able to get it back together? Were you ever disappointed and think, oh shoot, why did I do that?
Yeah, back then I probably just didn't have the tools to fix things, so you'd end up just relying on old faithful duct tape or something.
And of course, I had the privilege of meeting you when you selected a capstone project. And
Yeah.
for those who don't know, can you explain what a capstone project is?
Yeah, so capstone's your final project after you do your engineering degree or diploma. So the capstone's your final project, and typically people will come in and they will present the different projects that they have for you, and then you kind of vote on your top like 1, 2, or 3 projects that you'd like to do, because obviously with 100 students, not everyone's going to get their very first pick. So yeah, you kind of just pick whatever is the most up your alley, something that you think you would be strong on. And yeah, I happened to choose the Tetra project as my number 1 and got that. So yeah, I was happy to receive that back then.
And in this format, you don't know what other classmates or students have chosen it, so you're kind of thrown together to work together, and hopefully you know your classmates somewhat, but you never know who you'll be working with. So the project pitch that I had BCIT and other universities work on a way that I could reach my bag around the back of my chair, something that ran on an automated way, and you helped take that to the next level. So can you talk a little bit about your work on the project that you did for me and what intrigued you about that?
Yeah, so I'll try and pull up a video while I speak. Yeah, back then I wanted to do a project that we would actually make. Some projects are just like theoretical where you just write a report at the end of it. So I wanted to do a project where you would actually physically build, and something where the scope of it wasn't so large that you only end up building like a fraction. So something that was simple enough with the time that we had that we could actually complete. And also I wanted to do a project that actually helped people, like you'll get, let's say, an oil and gas company that approaches you with a problem. Well, I'm sure they have money to go do their own R&D privately. So for an organization like Tetra, who relies on volunteers, it seemed like an amazing opportunity to get that done. I've got a video up here. I'll try to share my screen so that people can see. So yeah, that is the project that we completed back in 2016. Now, Eric has a similar concept on the back of his chair, but it was designed specifically for Eric's chair. So our project with this was to get it to be able to mount on as many wheelchairs as possible. So yeah, we found that by going to the grab handles, that was the most common way that we could hopefully attach to 80% of the chairs. Hopefully, that would feel like a win.
Yes, and then I do remember that high quality bag.
Yeah.
So people would ask me, is it my bag? And no, as Micah can probably tell you, I'm nowhere near as stylish. You talked about your desire to help people. Obviously, that maintained after the capstone project.
Yeah.
And talk about how your experience with the Kelowna Tetra chapter has been.
Yeah, so after graduating university and moving to Kelowna, I got a couple years experience. So I think I felt confident to now come and help, that I actually had some skills to offer. So it took a couple years to get to that point, and as well having the software on my computer. The software that I use is quite expensive, so it took me quite a while to save up to buy it. So that's why it took me a little bit to become a volunteer, I guess you would say. And I also went self-employed, so that kind of gave me whatever free time to kind of choose my own hours. And I've always had a heart to help people. I think having physical and being mentally abled is somewhat of a gift, and we shouldn't be taking it for granted. So if you have the extra time, or if you have resources or skills, then it feels good to be able to help out for sure. Kelowna chapter's been good. I've only completed one project so far, but Kathy, who's the coordinator here, seems to always get back very promptly. Haven't had the pleasure of meeting her quite yet due to the pandemic, but I'm sure we'll get there.
Yeah, well, let's all hope for that for sure. And then do feel free to let people know what are you doing now? What is you said your own business and about wanting to give back. So tell us when you're not volunteering and giving back, what keeps you busy?
So I guess for non-work related things would be snowboarding in the winter, boating in the summer, golf, that kind of fun stuff. For work, I do metal design. So anything that's like structural steel, architectural metal, aluminum, anything that needs to be designed that would be welded or fabricated. I would do the design, and then I get it made at different fab shops. So as far as Tetra goes, any projects that are kind of in that realm of it is something that I can help out with, having the software, the knowledge, and the connections. I guess the thing that I would lack that some other people bring to the table is having a shop and kind of having access to being able to build things themselves. I can do another screen share here to show the project that I just completed recently. So this was a gentleman who, first, Eric, you can see my screen, correct?
I can, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, so a gentleman approached Tetra that was having issues transferring from his chair into hotel beds. I guess the height of them is not regulated, and due to some beds having like a pillow top, they ended up being really high. So he was asking for a ramp that was lightweight, would be compact, that he can basically bring while he travels. So this is what I came up with. So it'd be 2 separate ramps that would fold for storage or unfold to be able to go up the ramp. And then these are adjustable as well, so you can gain like 1 to 4 inches, and then they would just stack on top of each other. So that is what I completed, and this is all made out of like bent aluminum and welded together. 7.5 pounds each, so only 15 pounds, which is doesn't take up a considerable amount of weight, considering the 50-pound limit that all the WestJet and Air Canada puts forward.
No, that's an awesome project. I mean, I struggle with that myself. I should get you to make me one of those.
Yeah, it's considered the prototype stage right now. It's just being made this week, so hopefully iron out the kinks, and then if you guys want to take it further, then by all means. But it seems like a pretty big issue, so I'm happy to have been a part of being able to address it.
I guess you've talked about your desire to volunteer, and what it means to you. In closing, if somebody was thinking about volunteering or getting involved themselves, what would you say is the greatest benefit of volunteering?
I guess the experience that you gain from it, if anybody is having trouble, let's say finding a job, coming out of school or anything, volunteer always looks great on the resume. And not only does it look great for you, but it helps somebody else. So it's kind of a two-way street, right? It's a win-win. If you feel kind of shy and you feel like you don't have much to offer, then I would urge you to look at yourself again, because there's always something that you have to offer. It's just a matter of what your strengths are, and it's everybody having different unique strengths that when they come together makes a good team. So maybe it's even just a matter of knowing somebody, having a connection. Sometimes even that is just more valuable than having the skill itself.
Perfect. Well, Micah, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. It was great to see you again, and thank you for sharing your skills and abilities with the people and in the Kelowna chapter, and truly trying to make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I did want to, I see Dan is on, Dan Vasily. Hello, Dan. I had the privilege of talking to you when you were excited to join Tetra, and I mentioned you in the previous presentation because Sylvia will say, we wanted to have a presence in Thunder Bay for a long time. And you are a relatively new volunteer. We've heard from volunteers who've been around a while, but what you heard about Tetra through a posting, and what drew you to Tetra, and how have you found your volunteering so far?
First of all, thank you very much for having me on this conference and for having me as one of your volunteers. Interesting enough, I heard about Tetra from Dr. Lye's project with Carter. I just came across that news and it just clicked with me. If I can take 2 minutes, I'd like to introduce some points from my life story, because that explains, I think, pretty much why am I here today. So I'm Romanian born. I spent my first 32 years in Romania, 20 of those under a communist regime. And as you know, communists weren't the most generous people you can think of. So I grew up in an environment of scarcity, where if you needed something, you have to improvise and do it on a low budget. Okay, so that's how I grew up. Be creative, make things that you need with very little resources, and do whatever you can to improvise. And I went to electronics simply because I didn't like the mechanical engineering portion with carrying a tube with drawings behind you all the time. So electronics is my first specialty. And then 20 some years ago, essentially 21 years ago, we came to the United States. We saw the Twin Towers falling down. In 2005, I came to Canada, worked at Memorial, and I'm currently working at Lakehead University. Now, in 2014, I met one physiotherapist, Vinnie Johnson, and he had some great ideas about stroke rehabilitation. So he was working on a PhD, excuse me, at that time. And he had some really great ideas about how to make people who had stroke regain some of the functionality. He just didn't have any engineering background. So I pretty much invented a device, and we put together a clinical study, devices that cost $20, and 8 hours of training with those devices made some people handwrite again. So that was really, really amazing. That was my first and most impactful contact with people who face this kind of struggles in their lives, being unable to do what most of us take for granted. So we started that company. It's already running. iRegain is the name of the company. And later I realized that there are two ways of doing things in life. One would be to go commercial. In other words, start a company, try to raise money, patent everything, protect your knowledge, try to make a big buck out of it. The other option is to share your knowledge, expect nothing in return, except you're getting more than you can hope for. Specifically, you get a smile on someone's face, you get to see somebody being able to do something that they can never imagine they could do. So I chose the second path. I'm a pretty creative guy. I have my own maker space in the house with 3D printers and all kind of tools you can think of. And when I saw Tetra, I said, this is the place where I want to be. So I contacted Sylvia because there was no trace of any activity of Tetra in Thunder Bay. And Sylvia said, you know what? Let's start a virtual chapter, and you'd be the first one in that virtual chapter in Thunder Bay. So here I am. And that's pretty much, I hope this explains why I'm here. I'm really enthusiastic about this society because it connects people who are creative with people who need that creativity badly, right? So I think there's no better way to meet these two worlds in a way that benefits everybody.
Talked about, you've worked on larger projects before and done studies, and here with Tetra, it's really a one-on-one human connection. So you get a chance to use your skills for one person at a time.
Yes, that is correct. So my first job was for Philips Industrial in Romania. So I worked with, industrial weighing for tracks for all kind of oil and gas processing, big projects. So you put your mind as part of one team. But you don't get the same excitement and the same feedback from an industrial project as opposed to working with somebody who has a very specific need. And even more important than that, somebody who cannot find a solution for their need anywhere on the market. So it's a world of prototypes, a one-off devices that you cannot possibly buy. And at the same time, they're optimized for that particular user. So it requires a lot of creativity, but at the same time, the reward is just great. So.
And talk about, because I know when we first spoke, you really are empowered by the problem solving. I'm always fascinated, and a lot of our clients will ask, how do the volunteers do it? So when you talk about meeting someone and they have a challenge that they haven't found commercially available, how do you come up with the solutions? How do you work through the problem-solving process?
So this is probably not specific to engineers. I never have a plan from start to end, never ever. So if somebody tells me I need to do this, I try not to come with any pre-existing ideas or solutions because that tends to put you back into someone else's way of thinking, which may or may not have worked at that time. So start with a blank slate, and I'm asking that person, what would you like to see? Not how to do it. What would you like to do? That is one step. The second step is observe. So you need to keep a very close eye on what that person needs to do without being intrusive. So you don't guide that person onto doing what they need to do. You just look how they try to do this, observe what are the challenges, and then based on this package, if you want, because it's a package of information, I start building. So it's just an improvisation from start to end. As I mentioned, I don't have a plan till the very end. I build something and I realize, okay, this works great, this doesn't work, let's change it. And I find a path through this design process. And there's a lot of help coming from above, as we all know, right? So it's not just our mind doing all this. We're just tools.
And I also know, I heard from Sylvia, you have some friends that are technically minded too. So you're not afraid to bounce ideas off other people, and you're working to try and build our volunteer team in Thunder Bay.
Yes, so I have a friend, a very close friend, who I'm trying to pull over to Tetra. Unfortunately, he's really busy with two teenage daughters, so I could not get him on board yet. But I'm just standing on the sidelines for his kids to go to university, and then I'll let him off the hook. And he's mine for sure. So he's on the target. And I also, because I work at Lakehead University at the engineering department, I have contacts there. And I'm looking for students to come on board, maybe start projects. But I'm fresh, so I'm just during my first project with Tetra as we speak. Not yet finished it. I'm in the process of finishing it.
So would you mind, what is that project you're working on right now?
So this is part of a project with Home Automation Group in Ottawa. We had one client who needed a voice-activated remote control for his bed. The problem with these voice activated beds, with these remotely controlled beds, they have a remote control. It's a wired device. If you try to splice that one open and to attach an electronic circuit to the interface, you're voiding the warranty of that device. So if something goes wrong with the bed, which is not a cheap piece of equipment, the manufacturer would decline any kind of warranty claims because you interfered with their product. So what I designed was an actuator with the electromagnets. That's actually, if you can think of fingers actuated by magnets that are pushing on the buttons of that remote control. So you don't need to open it. You just put it into this device, and then the voice command part, which is some of one other volunteer's part of this project, is essentially actuating those levers, excuse me, and pushing the buttons. So you can adapt this to any remote control. It doesn't matter what vendor, what protocol is being used for that device. It's just an external means that interfaces with the remote control and does the commands that you're looking to do.
Well, when people ask me how has Tetra changed over the years, this is the example that you gave, Dan, is an excellent example where we are trying to modify technology as best as possible. It's great to have Alexa or Google Home or the things that you talked about, but it can sure be frustrating if it's supposed to make everybody's life easier and you still can't use it. So that has been something that's really been awesome to see, where volunteers like yourself can make a device as independent, help somebody be as independent as they want to be. So we have covered technical volunteers, but anybody who runs a chapter will tell you that a technical volunteer is only part of it. There's lots that goes into it. We have volunteers. I saw Barb's name in the chat. We've had volunteers that have helped us promote TetraCon. We have volunteers that help us organize projects. They would be in the category of outreach or administrative volunteers. And to speak more on that, and I'd also like to more formally introduce to everybody Crystal Liechko Johnson, who has worked with Tetra the last couple of years and now serves as the Prairie Regional Coordinator.
Hi, Eric, and hi, everyone. It's nice to join you this afternoon. As Eric said, I'm located in Winnipeg. Previously, was the Winnipeg Chapter Coordinator. I'm currently overseeing the Prairies as the Prairie Regional Coordinator. And in all of our Prairie chapters and all across Tetra, we have such fabulous outreach volunteers. So they can help us with pretty much anything that we need help with. They're all amazing. Anything from project coordination, volunteer management, client relations, community outreach. So contacting organizations, attending expos, trade shows, helping us with our marketing, helping us with our social media, anything related to fundraising. So coming up with those fundraising ideas, hosting fundraisers, writing grants. There are just so many opportunities, and anyone from, we have volunteers that are in high school, working, retired, so all ages, all abilities, everyone is welcome.
Perfect. And then when you've worked with volunteers, you said anybody is welcome. What would you say benefit the chapter? How much stronger is a chapter, say, from a strong core of outreach volunteers? How does that help you personally be a better coordinator?
Definitely, yeah. Outreach volunteers are vital to, especially in our experience in Winnipeg with starting a chapter. With just the chapter coordinator working on outreach, it really limits our reach. With our outreach volunteers, we can become much more effective. We're able to reach out to more community organizations, attend more events, get a wider reach. And even our clients are able to get a better experience as we have outreach volunteers assisting.
And that term outreach is not meant to be intimidating.
Yes.
It can be, it doesn't have to be speaking to 500 people. It could be helping out on social media, or what's what's the most common way that could benefit your chapter or the region that you oversee? Because you oversee from basically Alberta to Manitoba. What's the most common examples of hopeful?
Yeah, I think the most helpful is definitely having someone assist with project coordination. For that individual, it's a fairly, I guess, it requires a little more commitment than some of our other outreach opportunities, but having someone, when a request for assistance comes in, sending it their way and having them match up a suitable technical volunteer is so helpful. I mean, all of the outreach volunteers are so important to our cause. So everything, the community outreach volunteers are important, fundraising volunteers, marketing. We've had volunteers coming up with different marketing ideas. So we have a lot of marketing students involved. So coming up with those ideas and then helping the chapters implement them have been very helpful.
And then when you talk a little bit about coordinating projects, you could also help with, would it be considered administration, or what's the way that coordinating when you say coordinating a project, what does that mean? Are they scheduling team meetings? What's involved in project coordination?
So when the request comes in, it's sent to the project coordinator. They look at the needs. They match up a technical builder volunteer to that project. And then behind the scenes, they can be coordinating meetings between the client and the technical builder. Also having backup from the chapter coordinator, of course. But yeah, and just running through the project until the very end, and even as far as following up with the client in the end, or at least ensuring that someone has followed up with the client. So that might be the technical builder, it might be the chapter coordinator, it might be another volunteer that's helping with client relations. So the position can be, it can be a sole person, it can be a couple of people assisting together, working together, but it's definitely very helpful for the chapters.
And it just really sounds like strengthening the network, right? Another person to reach out. And now we've heard already, sometimes people have skills and they want to volunteer. Could you speak on, can they volunteer from home? What are the hours that's expected? Is the hours they can volunteer, is there certain days or times? How flexible is the volunteer opportunity?
So the volunteer opportunities are very flexible. We want to work with our volunteers with their schedule, volunteering when they're able to. They're able to mainly work from home. We do ask that they attend a monthly chapter meeting. So that meeting is usually about an hour. With COVID, they have mostly become virtual. At some point, we will be having in-person chapter meetings again, hopefully. So attending that meeting and then taking on tasks throughout each month that they're able to do. So if there's a task that the chapter needs, the chapter coordinator will message the volunteers that they have available, ask them if they're interested in that task, and kind of outline what the time commitment for this particular job is. It might be something that's just a short term. I know in Winnipeg, we just received a wonderful donation of about 4,000 KN95 masks. And we just needed people to be delivering those and to reaching out to organizations. So that's kind of a short-term project. So when those masks are all gone, then they can move on to something else. So it's always changing. We don't want people to commit to too much time that they're not able to give. So if it's a few hours a week, 10 hours a month, whatever works best for them, we are happy to work with them on that.
This is our closing keynote, our closing speaker. So Bryce Clark has been a police officer with the Edmonton Police Department since 1998. He is only one of two known officers with a spinal cord injury who's a quadriplegic. And Bryce is definitely the only officer working full-time. He may be the only officer with his level of spinal cord injury working for the police department in the world, for all we know. Despite his including his work as a police officer. He also serves as the vice chair for spinal cord injury of Alberta. He has served as a council member on the Alberta Premier's Council on the status of those with disabilities, and he has been on Tetra's board since 2016. It is my honor and privilege to welcome Bryce Clark to close the 2021 virtual TetraCon by sharing his stories. And again, Bryce gives of himself and serves on Tetra's board. So if you like what Tetra does and mapping out what our goals are, Bryce helps us shape that and put that together. So without further ado, Bryce, thanks for taking time out of your day to join us. Hello, Bryce.
Hi, Eric. Thank you so much for a wonderful introduction. And hello, everybody. Thanks for attending TetraCon 2021. As Eric mentioned, my name is Bryce Clark, and I've been a C5-6 quadriplegic since August 26th of 2001. This year marks my 28th anniversary of being disabled. Before August of 2001, I had never heard of the term quadriplegic or had any exposure to people with disabilities, except for the occasional passerby type of observation. I grew up on a small farm southwest of Calgary and near the town of Okotoks, and didn't have anyone with a disability around. While growing up, I was very lucky, and I had an excellent role model, as I got to watch my dad go to work every day with a gigantic smile on his face. Dad was a police officer with the Calgary Police Service, and he loved it. He was so proud to be a police officer, and he told me continually that if I could find something that I loved and turn it into a career, it would never feel like I had worked a day in my life. He would tell me stories about car chases, foot chases, and the satisfaction he got from helping someone, whether it was solve a mystery, help them get their property back, or console them in their time of grief. It didn't take long before I knew what I wanted to be, and that's a police officer. Everything I did was towards my goal, but it didn't come easy. After high school, I wasn't the smartest guy. I didn't get the best grades. After high school, I was lucky I did get into college, and I went right into college after high school. But I failed miserably. I didn't get my degree, and I ended up selling vacuum cleaners door to door for 2 to 3 years. When I realized that's just not what I wanted to do with my life. So I went back to school, and while working full time, I took night classes and I obtained my criminology degree. I then started applying to different police services. I applied to Winnipeg, I applied to Calgary, I applied to the RCMP, and I got turned down by all of them. And finally, in 1997, I applied to the Edmonton Police Service. And on December 3rd, 1997, I got the phone call that changed my life, that I'd been accepted to the Edmonton Police Service, and I was to start in recruit class number 91 on February 23rd, 1998. Starting in class, you're with 28 others like-minded individuals, and you go through, you're in class for 6 months or so, just classroom, and then you're put on the street with an experienced officer for your other training, and then you're brought back to the class for a couple of weeks. Well, when I was out on the street with an experienced officer, I got into a big high-speed chase. And we got in behind a red Camaro that had just been stolen. And it took off from us like a bolt of lightning. And all we could do was follow with our lights and sirens on. And I remember watching it go through red lights, stop signs, and it was just, my adrenaline was pumping. And all of a sudden there was nothing but smoke and lights ahead of us. And the vehicle crashed. Most people would have been hurt, But we watched as one guy crawled out the driver's window, another guy crawled out the passenger window and took off running. I chased the guy that ran out the driver's side. My partner chased the guy that ran out the passenger. And I can remember I'm chasing him and I'm yelling, "Stop, police, stop, police," just as we were trained in class. And he wouldn't stop. And all of a sudden I saw him doing this with his arms. And I'm like, why is he? And then all of a sudden, the next thing I know, I'm doing this. And I'm jumping off of a cliff and flying through the air. And I land on the ground. And it's pitch black. There's nothing, nobody around. So I grab the flashlight out of my belt and I start shining it around. And I see the guy up on the hill, just about 5-10 feet away from where I landed. I ran up and grabbed him, handcuffed him, and brought him back up the ravine. And at that time, my partner's at the top, and he's like, "Oh, good, you caught him." I said, "Yeah, well, where's your guy?" He goes, "Well, I was too worried about you. I had to come back and see if you're okay." And right from that moment, I knew that this was my calling. This was where I was meant to be. So I went through the rest of that summer and just had an absolute blast. I joined or started in South Division in patrol, responding to different calls. And I got really good at gang unit investigations and drug investigations. So much that I actually started an undercover role in the spring of 2001. But then July 1st happened. July 1st, 2001, Edmonton had the Canada Day riots. And basically White Ave was an Ave full of bars and drinking establishments. And people started rioting, smashing windows, lighting cars on fire. And when they did that, it just destroyed the Ave. And we had like 12 or 13 members that would work up there on nonstop. But now, because of this, we had to have 40 members called up. So all the units, one included that I was in, were all seconded to White Ave for the summer. And every weekend, it seemed like we were on the brink of another riot. It was extremely stressful that whole summer. And so on August 25th, it was the last day before we were supposed to go back to our regular units. And I ended up saying to everybody, "Hey, come back to my place after shift. We've got a hot tub and a swimming pool. We'll all celebrate that we're going back and away we go." So at 3 in the morning when we were off shift, I think 12 or 13 guys and girls came and came back. And we were just having a good night, and I did one thing that I had done 1,000 times. And that's I stood on the railing of my deck and I jumped or dove into the swimming pool. But this time I heard something go wrong. All I heard was a crack, and I'm laying there face down. And I can hear the guys up on the deck laughing and teeing. They thought that it was a joke. And I can hear them yell, "Clark, come on, get up." And at that moment, I blacked out. I woke up approximately a week later in hospital, and I was told by the doctors that I'll never walk again. I'll never work again. Can't live on my acreage. And that there's no quadriplegic police officers anywhere. So that dream is gone. I was surrounded by a lot of negativity, and I had to make a choice. I had to either accept what happened and move on, or I had to feel sorry for myself, or I could feel sorry for myself. And I was very lucky because the chief of police at that time and my direct supervisor, a guy by the name of Ed McFarland, came to see me and reinforced that I had a place in the Edmonton Police Service. And that was all I needed. I needed to know that my dream wasn't dead. Never give up on your dreams. I had a dream now of returning to work. And I heard a lot of no's, but it only took one yes. And in the summer of 2003, I started volunteering in gang unit. I started to organize and develop gang books for the guys on the street. to go and know who were members of the gangs and where they were. This led to me developing gang presentations and actually going out into schools and talking about gangs, doing it for community groups and community members, other law enforcement agencies, and even at-risk youths. The one thing that we discovered was actually that a lot of people actually thought that I was a former gang member that had gotten shot. Very few people thought that I was a police officer, which led to a bunch of other opportunities, such as in Edmonton, every year we have what's called Klondike Days, and it's a fair where thousands of people come to ride the midway and partake in all different activities. And unfortunately, we had a problem with gang members and drug dealers doing their business on the fairgrounds. And there was a growing chance that some violent incident could occur. So I orchestrated an undercover operation where I would wheel around the grounds and act a little more disabled than what I am, tilt my head and drool a little. And I'd try to get close enough to the drug dealers and gang members to hear what they were saying so that we could prove that they were up to no good and they were actually causing disruption on the fairgrounds. So then what I'd do is I'd back away, and my wheelchair was all outfitted with a hidden microphone. And I just had to hit a button and I could talk to all the other members that were on the fairgrounds. So I'd back away and I'd call the other members in so that they could arrest them and eject the people from the fairgrounds. And this worked great. For like 3 consecutive years, we did this operation and we're able to get rid of violent gang members from the grounds. But on the last day of what turned out to be the last year, I ended up locating a well-known drug dealer who happened to be a member of the Hells Angels biker group. And I followed him for a while until I had enough information to prove that he wasn't up to anything good. So I backed away, and I thought I backed away far enough that I called in all the other troops. And as they came in and started to arrest all these other guys, I was confronted by a very large, heavily tattooed man. This guy was like 6'4", well over 300 pounds. And he's yelling at me, and he's pointing and getting closer. He's yelling at me that you're a cop. You're the one responsible for all my buddies getting arrested. And he's getting closer and closer. I'm getting a little more concerned. And I realized, okay, I've got to take control of this. So I just keyed the microphone so that all the other police officers could hear that I'm being yelled at by this guy. And then as he was getting closer, I started to yell back at him. How could I be a police officer? I'm in a wheelchair. I'm paralyzed from the neck down. And this actually kind of made him hesitate. And it hesitated him long enough on his assault that I was able to back away, and some of the guys were able to get in between us and pull him away so that I was able to maintain my cover and leave. Now, this was great. I was fine. There was no problems. But unfortunately, once word got back to the executives, my undercover days were over. But this was okay because I had opened up enough eyes by doing other stuff with helping on investigations, watching surveillance videos, drafting warrants, and working with other in the wire room, that this opened people's eyes to what I could do, and that other units started to see my potential, and the doors slowly began to open. One of the biggest things that first happened was February 2009. I returned to work full time, something that never had been done by anybody with a spinal cord injury. I stayed in gang unit until April of 2010, when I was asked to join homicide section and investigate cold cases. This is dusting off files and searching for new leads and whatnot. And it can be pretty gory, but I knew I was made for it when one morning, or after, I guess it was afternoon, my receptionist who helped me get lunch together and all that stuff, she got my lunch together and I'm eating. And she came around the table and I'm sitting there and I'm going through an investigation where I'm looking at crime scene photos. So I'm looking at what's happened, going through autopsy pictures and everything. And she just was like, ew, how can you do that? And didn't even think of it. And at that moment, I knew that I was meant to do this. And it was just another dream that had come true in mine. And I still had more to do. While in homicide, I was asked to help out other units. I was asked to come and speak to recruit training. I was asked to help with ethics training. And I had to say no to some of it because I had to stay close to headquarters. Because up to this point, in order to use the washroom, I had to rely on good friends and former caregivers of mine to come and empty me. I have an indwelling catheter, so I use a leg bag. So somebody has to always empty it if I want to keep fluids up and stay healthy. So I couldn't go anywhere. But this is where organizations like Tetra are so important because they always have new gadgets that's coming up and whatever. And I was able to find a new gadget called a leg bag emptier. And I brought it up from the States. And what a game changer. Because now my only problem is there's no wheelchair accessible washroom in the police service or in police headquarters that I can use. So I either have to go outside, but I can still empty myself. I don't have to ask for anybody's help. Or I can go upstairs to the top floor where there's a single washroom, but the door opens to the hallway. So I can usually get my legs extended and get over the toilet. So I hit the button and it drains into the toilet. But unfortunately, anybody walking by can see, but it's no big deal. Where there's a will, there's a way. You've still got to live your life. In 2017, I moved out of homicide section and downtown to downtown division. And I started working in offender management with a team of younger officers. We started targeting the bad of bad guys that had been released from prison and were now living on the streets of Edmonton. My job was to coordinate and go after which members were at the higher risk for reoffending and to get these young guys, young officers, to go after these guys to make sure we're holding them accountable. While working with these younger guys really got the passion and excitement in me going again. And I was doing that right up until 2020, March 13, when the wonderful pandemic that has changed all of our lives affected us in such that I was sent home to work from home. And I'm still working from home, doing similar work. But actually it was funny because I was supposed to go back last Wednesday, 1 week ago, September 8th. And unfortunately, the fourth wave of COVID hit Alberta and I've been delayed again. But the one thing this has all taught me is to never give up on your dreams, to live your best life. And no matter what, keep dreaming and keep living. I thank you so much for allowing me to come and talk to you today. I hope I've shed some light on overcoming barriers and never giving up on what you want to do. Thank you.
I thank everybody for joining us and learning about Tetra, and hopefully you've come away with more knowledge. I want to thank everybody who helped out, our volunteers, Sylvia, my other colleagues, Jordan, and of course, Bryden. It's been a pleasure to put this on.